After we have started monitoring the baseline using the Monitor button, we can now create a sequence. Click File, Sequence File, and New. In the Sequence File editor, we first want to start with the injection module. If we click the drop down, we'll see we have three options in this case. Your system may vary depending on your configuration. We have a None, which would actually allow us to run a method, including a gradient, without needing to do an injection. We could use this, for instance, if we're shutting down the system at zero flow, or if we wanted to flush the bottles after we have completed a purification. Otherwise, more often, we will use an autosampler or the LVI for the injection. We'll first start with the autosampler. After selecting that, if you click on another box, you'll see it fills in some of the information. We'll start in the starting vial number location, where you'll type in the location of the vial which you want to inject from. For example, number 3. The last vial can be ignored if we're only doing one injection, as shown by one repeat. If we are doing multiple injections, for example 4, if we have the start and last is the same, it will do 4 injections from vial number 3. However, if we'd like to do more repeats, for example 10, if we select a different last vial, this will do 10 injections from vial 3 and then 10 injections from vial 4. However, in this first example, we will stick with one injection from one particular vial. We will next set the analysis time. It is always better to err on the long side, as we do not know at what time our peaks will elute, and we can always stop the method early if they both elute. We want to select our time program that we've created, method 2 in this case. Load start time and injection interval, if we're only doing one repeat, are not applicable. However, I will explain them for future use. The load start time, in this case 0.2 minutes, means at 0.2 minutes into the current run, it will start preparing the next injection. So the autosampler in this case would start picking up the next sample at 0.2 minutes into the current method, thus eliminating the time it may take the autosampler to pick up, allowing us to inject as soon as the first run is finished. Again, as we are only doing one repeat, this will not occur. The injection interval is the stacked injection value. We will come to stacked injections in a later section. So for this point, we'll just leave this as the default of 0, as we're not using stacked injections. The next thing, of course, we want to set the injection volume. In the Information tab, we can put in any information we would like to include, or we can leave it blank. Similarly, we can add information to the comment section below. If we wanted to use the LVI instead, let's go ahead and change this to LVI, and what you'll notice is that our start and last vial are blank. Of course, because we're not using the autosampler, there are no vials. Again, we would set the number of repeats, the analysis time, pick our method, again with one repeat, one injection. These are not applicable. And of course we set the injection volume, information, and comments if we like. The last thing to do is to click on any of the lines on the left, in this case number 1, and come down to the sample load setting button at the bottom right. This sample load setting, as you can see, allows us to set parameters for the autosampler and the large volume injector. The autosampler values allow us to speed up the draw, eject, or flush speeds, or change the flush count if we need to. If we change any of these values, simply click the Update button. Typically, the default values are just fine. And for the autosampler, we don't change the parameters. For the large volume injector, however, we will change them depending on the injection size. As you can see, the injection volume is brought down from the sequence table. 0.5 milliliters is our injection volume. Down below, our sample overflow volume, of course. We don't want to overflow any extra sample, so we leave that as 0. Our flow rate at loading is the flow rate at which the pump will flow into the loop. It is recommended that you use the flow rate twice that of the injection volume, so in this case 1 mil per minute. The flow at preparing is actually the cycle of the sample through the pump, through the selector valve, and back into the sample. We recommend you also match the flow rate at loading for this. At 1 mil per minute, that allows us to do an injection, in this case a half a mil, in 30 seconds, which can be very helpful for stacked injections. The decompression time is the time at which the injection loop vents the CO2 prior to loading the next sample. The default of 0.1 minute is just fine. If you are using a 5 mil, 10 mil, or 20 mil injection loop, you may want to increase this to allow a little extra time for CO2 venting. Once you've set these parameters, click the OK button. And the last thing we want to do is save. When we save, this is going to be our sample name. Once we've typed that in, click Save, and last, click OK. Once we click OK, we'll notice that it has automatically loaded our sequence and our time program in for us. We will simply need to hit the Reset button. That will confirm the method parameters get sent over, and we're ready to hit the Start button to start our first injection.